Tsukimi here. Who else would it be? Observations with Otsu for March 25th. I hope you've had a good weekend and you're enjoying your day so far. Pretty good green day across the board. We'll get into that. If you're not familiar with Observations with Otsu, this is my weekly perspective on Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and Dogecoin. We have recently added Dogecoin, and we'll keep that in the lineup for probably the next month. And so, with all of that, the theme for this video is, are you too focused on price action? And that's going to have a little bit, of some nuance to that. And that's by design, because I think, the biggest problem that people are going to have right now, and you'll see this attributed as what's called a mid-curve thing, but nobody will explain to you what mid-curving really is in practicality. I think the current mid-curve narrative that actually occurs is people focus too much on price action without understanding things like trend, momentum, or just the nature of how things are going right now. But we'll get into that in the theme of this video. We're also going to have some preliminary things, mainly just talking about my Nowhere Premium Discord, which you can find the link in the description or in the post if I post it on X, as well as my scripts. I haven't advertised my scripts as well as I have in the past couple weeks, mainly because my family's been sick. But I want to kind of let you guys know about that as well and see where we land with that. That's also the links for those scripts will also be in the description. That being said, this is the introduction. Let's get started into the video. First things first, I want to talk about Nowhere Premium and my Apex indicator script. We'll talk about the script first. That's exactly what you see on the screen here with the buys and sells. I won't get into it too much because I have a feature guide. I'm going to put that in the description as well. It's like a 30-minute guide really to talk about. Actually, so the Nowhere Premium has its own guide, and then the scripts also have a back testing video, which I will link all of those in the description. But what I want you to know with this one, this is a buy and sell script indicator for you, or just for anyone that's interested. And what it does is it basically does 90% of the application to look at the charts for you. It comes up with its own buys and sells, comes up with your own stop losses, and entries. So, for example, on the current Bitcoin chart, I'll just go through one or two examples here. Your entry would be right here where this little dot is. Your stop loss would be where the other dots are right now, and the current price would net you about 2R or about 5.5%. And so that's by design, and that's kind of how that runs. Here's a very smaller, not quite super small because that's just where the price is, but your entry and stop loss would be right here, and then based off of if you take it all the way to the other sell signal, you'd have 41R at about 57%. So that's kind of how that script works a little bit. If you want to know more about that, I have dedicated videos that share how those operate, and I'll put those in the description as well. But you got like the daily, this is what the daily looks like as far as these buys or sells. The daily has been in a buy opportunity since 43,000. The dailies don't trigger that much, just to give you a heads up. I mean, they do if the price action is a little sideways like this here, like middle of last year. But once we start taking off, the daily is kind of hard to get back into. So just being aware of that. But for the 4 hour, we had two buy opportunities here and then a sell opportunity. And so this current one is doing okay. This is based on Arun, price action and trend and momentum. Pretty much all four of those disciplines. I basically took the best of what works between all of those. And this is how I trade. Like the Apex indicator is, I really want to emphasize that. I don't emphasize it enough. The Apex indicator is really a manifestation, an algorithmic manifestation of how I trade. And so everybody, a lot of people wanted me to come up with this, and I did. And so this is one of the things that I do. This is the one on Ethereum. We currently have a buy signal here on the 4 hour, going pretty good so far. And then like Solana also has one too. And so this is what that looks like. Solana has been doing very good in this regard. And then even if you go to things like, was it like Win token? You had stuff like that. So on the 1 hour, this is what that looks like. Like I'm just going through random ones here. The whiff token, or was it not whiff token? Dog with hat. I don't know why I called it whiff token, but anyway, this is your 4 hour for that. So just things like that. Pepe is one that did pretty good and is currently going well. Things like that. So it had a buy opportunity from way back down below. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. So I won't spend too much time on it, but I want you to know that it does exist, and this helps support me directly. These scripts and Nowhere Premium helps support me directly. I don't have sponsors. I do have a ref link if you want that, but this is how I'm able to continue, doing what I do. So if you like what I do, this is the by far the like you support me directly. Like these kind of purchases help me, to take my son out to eat, for example, things like that. So it is direct. So anyway, that's pretty much the script on the premium videos. I'll talk more about that in the description, and I'll link that guide to you. Basically, it's a trading portfolio guide, or not a guide. It features premium chat, premium charts, a trading portfolio. That basically we started about $11,600, and now we're almost at $30,000. So we try to get about 21%, 25% profit per month. We've been doing that every month thus far, doing pretty good. We also cover small caps. One of them was actually Nosana, and now Nosana is like one of the top 10 AI coins right now. And we covered this way back here in November, actually, where this signal was actually. But we covered it roughly. I don't think we covered it that low. I think we covered it somewhere around here actually. But it's been pretty, probably one of our highest performing coins. I don't remember exactly where it was, but this is where we talk about small caps that have less than 2 million market cap, and a lot of those have been doing pretty good. So um, we also do private videos. I think last video we did like an order block video, custom based order block video answering your questions directly. We've done Solana ecosystem videos. We've done 2 portfolio management videos. We have also done ordinals. I think we're getting ready to do a base ecosystem video to cover that as well. So you get 2 of those videos per month. And so it's been pretty good overall. Anyway, I'll link all the links. I'll put all the links in the description so that you can look for that for yourself and make that own decision for you. The scripts and the paid premium have 7-day free trials as well. So anyway, I'll just keep moving on with the video, but just letting you aware of that. And as I said, it directly supports me, so I thank you if you do support me in that way. All right. First things first, we're going to talk about Bitcoin on the weekly time frame now. Let's talk about kind of what's happened so far leading up to this. So we had the run up, as we know, going into 70. Yet last week we had kind of a close, and now this is a very interesting close because a lot of people, even myself, thought this would be a very concerning week. Actually closed very, very well. And so that's kind of something that I wanted to look at. So from the weekly standpoint, one of my arguments was like we have this basically wick zone. This is really the only wick zone that really matters. We did have something right here, but this line was basically underneath this one, so it's not relevant anymore. So this is kind of what I call like a liquidity range. And so we close right here, and then so that was our highest close that we've really ever had. We did breach up to about 90, 73, 74, depending on what kind of exchange that you have looked at. Like here's about 73, 800 basically. Had the drop down, but we held that. We had another big drop down, and so one of my concerns was if we close below this would cause a deviation, and deviations are very strong. I hold deviations very seriously in the markets because that generally means we won't recover right away. And now, fortunately, we actually had a pretty good recovery, and honestly, up, before the weekend, we were in very serious danger of closing under that deviation point, but we actually had a very solid, actually one of the most solid weekends for a market that I've seen in quite a bit. Very good recovery, and so now that put us back into the liquidity zone here. So now that says a couple things. First of all, that saves us from that weekly deviation that I was talking about. But second of all, this actually puts us into a range bound scenario on lower time frames, and not a typical parabolic scenario that we have been associating with this for the past 3 to 4 months. So really, ever since November, things have been taking off, and things are still kind of taking off. And we can see at the current candle that has been a very good bullish candle. Now, I don't know necessarily if this is going to continue or not. It could, Pretty strong day, honestly, with Bitcoin so far being above 5%, and a lot of coins actually are not. And so it's doing pretty good. It's actually outperforming Ethereum and Solana both, and really pretty much everything here except for maybe FTM. So that's doing pretty good. Um, However, that doesn't mean we're out of the ballpark just yet. And so we really need to have this close on the weekly to really establish that. But the range of this basically says if we happen to break back below 65,300 on the weekly, then we can go back to downside momentum, thinking about any kind of bearish price action. If we hold above 69,000 basically for the weekly, we're doing pretty good. Now, we already at 70,700, so that's very good. That does not mean that that's going to hold. Again, this is only one day in a 7 day outlook. So we have to think of that in terms of that kind of price action. Now, we could continue to rally here, perfectly fine. We could drop, perfectly fine. I think this week will play out a different way, and it could go to 80,000 by the end of this week and still not confirm what I'm saying until the end of the week. The weekly close needs to close first in order to continue for that rally. So, but that being said, the daily will say something else, which I'll talk about here in a second. But overall, this is looking pretty good. I think the daily will help illustrate what I'm saying a little bit better. I think it does present a bullish setup here, but we'll see where this goes. Very strong day, honestly. Now the A rune is a moderately wide, not as wide as it could be, but wide enough for a bearish consolidation. And so typically that means we should come back down to the downside. Now this hasn't been the case right now. In order for this to reset on the bull side, we just need to make a new high, basically 74,000. That's really all that needs to be done with that. But so far, looking okay. RSI is looking good too. This is very strong, honestly, on the weekly, and I'm actually a little bit impressed. This is not the outcome that I thought we would get. It wasn't unexpected per se, but I am relieved to see that we did not get that deviation that I thought that we could get. That also means potentially that this rally will continue, and so we'll see where that kind of bears. I would prefer that it does continue, but we'll see how that goes. We do have a small, divergence, but I don't think it's fair to really just put that on it right away. I've had too many questions about divergences in the past 4 months, to the point where I'm starting to get criticism. And I first of all, I think part of that is me not explaining divergences as well as I thought that I was. But two, it results of, I think, people not really understanding the nature of divergences. Just because you get one instantly does not mean that it's going to activate instantly. If it did, that would be way too easy, honestly. But at the same time, I do need to do a better job explaining that. But this is looking pretty good so far. Again, even if the divergence does play out, we have to look at that from the weekly close standpoint and go from there. But weekly still going very strong. As long as we hold, 69,000, we're doing good. But we'll see where this goes. I've got no reason to think that we're going to be bearish from here, as long as the 65,400 holds. As long as this lower level holds, basically the previous high close. As long as that holds, all bets are off for any kind of bearish theories. And so we can kind of look at this from more of a trailing stop perspective or climbing higher, things like that. So looking pretty solid. Let's go to the daily. And so we can kind of navigate what we see here. So as far as the daily goes, had the run up to the top here, had this consolidation to the downside. I think I'll cover the 4 hour here in just a second for this particular frame of reference. But we had a run up, and so what I need to show you in context is this kind of order block section right here. We basically retested that, very classic retest, allowed us to kind of move above. If you look on the 4 hour, this is that Adam and Eve pattern that I was kind of telling you about. And so your confirmation was really just this top portion right here. So that's looking good. Now I'm looking at the 4 hour context, a 4 hour with a daily context, but we could come down back to about 68,500, retest that quickly and come back up. The good news is like now that the weekly candle has been established, we have some flexibility. We've got about the 7 day flexibility to work with. So it could go up and down just because it could go back down to 66,000, and that could be completely still bullish as long as we recover. We are within this range, or within the range here, And so as long as we're in this range, doesn't necessarily, like, as long as we're above this range, or above the 65,500, I should say. So whether we're in this range or above it doesn't really matter. Like, it's not bearish either way. And so that's kind of the context. We want to play the break of this range. It's right now the break would be definitely bullish if we close above into this zone. But we'll see. I've too many times have seen a really good opening week get completely destroyed. So I don't want to presume anything, right? And I don't think you should either. Now, let's go back to this daily, and we'll get rid of this again, because this is above the weekly perspective. But I mean, it could come back down to 68,900 or 68,400. It doesn't really matter. A couple $100. That's what I was telling you about. This the price action stuff does matter, but also it doesn't, because a couple $100 isn't going to matter in the context of a larger time frame, based off of a larger trend, things like that. So anyway, that's what I see here is the Adam and Eve pattern. Let's go back to the daily here. Aaron is bullish consolidation, and it's pretty moderate. It's one reason we could be seeing this, fast paced, upward move for the past weekend. But now we also have an order block here, so now we're within that range. So basically, I'm basically identifying the outsides of this range. Very similar to what I looked at on the weekly, not the same levels, of course. But now I'm looking at this zone as a way to, long or short. Like, I don't see any reason. I honestly don't see a reason. This is gonna sound contradictory and even wrong, but I don't see any reason to long right now at 70,600 or 70,500. I would personally wait till we get above 73, because your opportunity here is going to be a little bit. You're within a range, so why would you want to long at the top of a range? You want to long at the break of that range instead. And so anyway, that's the kind of range I'm looking at. RSI did bounce above, so that's looking pretty good. So honestly, this is looking good overall. The way that I also see this too is that we have a trend, hedge your consolidation here, trend, consolidate. So now you're in a larger consolidation. Just got to play that out and just see where that goes. Other than that, I think Bitcoin's looking pretty good. Already better than I thought it was. But that doesn't mean that it won't continue, right? My thought process is that we would chop for Bitcoin this week. I and I'm still sold on that, by the way. First of all, because 5% in one day is nice, but that's not extravagant. That's not 20%, right? And so that could easily get retraced within a day or two. And so we also still have 6.5 days left. So we have plenty of time for this to continue to chop. And I think it will. I don't think this is going to run as high as you think that it would. But I think 70,000 is still pretty good from where we're at. And also keep in mind, this could be a bearish retest. Completely plausible that could happen. Arun is also bearish on the daily, so until that flips bullish, I have no interest to even really long with size anyway. But that's the weekly perspective. Let's go to Ethereum. All right, Ethereum on the weekly. Now, this is one, I talked about this yesterday in my Discord channel. I'm going to talk about this now. That Ethereum, out of Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and Dogecoin, Ethereum is the only one that I have major concerns with. And one of the biggest reasons is the closing candle that we had was below this range. So I'll just get rid of all this to redraw it for this video. But basically, you have this structure here. You have this order block structure, right? So we close into it. So this qualifies under my rules as a deviation. Now, this may not be important to some people, but it is to me, because now we've closed back and within the range. We had a pretty good wick scenario, so that was good. This doesn't mean that it's going to continue downwards. This could easily be a fake out. I've seen that before, so it's definitely plausible. At the same time, the price action that went below it does count as a deviation to me, and so that does nullify any sort of bullish ideas that I have for Ethereum. And basically, the reason why is because even if it does break out from here and fake out, it still is going to lag in comparison to Bitcoin and Solana and others. And that's, we're up 4.2 here, a little under that, or back and forth, and that's completely fine. So it is doing good for today, but like I said, we're looking at a weekly candle versus a daily perspective, and so we have to keep that in mind. So honestly, not that impressed. Now the good news is that we can look at this from the same perspective as what we currently look at with Bitcoin. This is basically a range. So we can look at this as a range, even though this lower part is actually in the previous range. And so we can look at it like so. If the weekly closes underneath it, then I think that you could even short this. And so that's kind of where I'm looking at that from that perspective. And so with this, I don't see any reason to really care about this from a bullish perspective until 38.60 is met on the weekly. On the Aaron, we have a very wide bearish consolidation, which also lets me think that we are going to continue to the downside. Would not be surprised. In fact, I think a good idea would be we just hit the mid range here at about 3,000. Also, this wick here does tend to get the lows swept eventually, so that also matches my target of $3,000. I think that we could get that. The only thing that would make me question that is the rest of the market is doing okay, so it doesn't really make sense at this stage of the market for Ethereum to go down and everything else go up. That doesn't mean it can't happen. I've seen that before as well. But typically they work in tandem together. And so most altcoins are going up at the same time right now because they have the same pattern. They're actually in very much in similarity to, they're basically following Bitcoin right now. That's one reason why Bitcoin's also going up and altcoins are kind of hit or miss, because altcoins are basically following the tempo of Bitcoin right now. But as far as this goes, a little concerned about this, to be honest with you. All we need to do is get a close above the weekly, and we're fine. Our side looks good, no complaints with that. Going to the daily here. So this is one reason why I was concerned about it as well, leading into the weekend, because we had a push down, we had a push up here. Now on the daily on the Bitcoin, we pushed above, and this was actual engulfing pattern. On Ethereum, we actually retested below this zone. It did not cover, it did not stay above it. We actually retraced and faded that. And now this current candle is staying above. So what we really need to do for this daily is to stay above it. And so as long as we don't go down to about 1% for the day, we can manage that. If we do go below this on today, I'm exercising a little bit extra concern because this is basically a bearish retest for the second time. And so honestly, it needs to stay above in this blue range at a minimum, or even go higher. But right now, looking okay. Got a bullish consolidation to kind of match that bullish reclaim. So I'm not. See, the thing is, I'm going back and forth between bullish and bearish, and one reason I'm doing that is because I'm not 100%. I'm not like bearish, bearish, and I'm not bullish, bullish, and that's the thing. A lot of people get those confused, and sometimes it is a little bit of mix of both. And sometimes when I say I'm bullish, I'm not like super bullish, like 10,000 Ethereum, or when I'm bearish, I'm not saying 12,000 Bitcoin, right? I'm saying something a little bit in the middle. And so, anyway, our side got the good reclaim. Ethereum is looking pretty good, honestly. Let's go ahead and go to Solana next. All right, Solana is next. And so, with this, a couple weeks ago, we had a pretty good run up and, kind of had a resistance zone. Kind of dropped down. We're kind of in no man's land with Solana, however. Didn't really get above the zone. And I'll just kind of keep it. I think it's just not worth redrawing everything again. But kind of within the zone, kind of stopped almost a little bit at the half point, a little bit below. But basically, I'm concerned about the range here, basically from 174 to 200, 201. That's pretty much it. It's um, as far as Aaron goes, very wide. It's trying to cross up, no consolidation, nothing like that. So Bears are trying to make an attempt here, but really, it's just got to play out. And the Solana is very strong in comparison to the other coins, so looking pretty good. Our side is looking good. Really needs to recover above the 205 range on the weekly. But we got some time here. Solana is one of these things where, again, the tempo really matters. We had a pretty good run up for the past really 6 months, and that makes you think that we're going to continue to run, and we don't have to. Nothing says that we can't take a couple of weeks, even a month break before we run up again. Could go sideways for 4 months, could do any of those things. But right now, looking pretty solid. So Solana is still, the best, I think, overall. With the daily, we got kind of like a resistance zone coming up, so you might have a potential retest here. The Aaron bearish consolidation is forming a wedge, so we have a chance at a higher probability of rejection here. So we'll see where that goes. Overall, looking pretty good. On the 4 hour, you have your same similar Adam and Eve pattern, but it is rejecting here. It's not. It didn't go above, like Bitcoin did. So keep that in mind overall. Some of these are rejecting here, and that is worth saying something. That it means we could get into a bigger, like triangular formation, like so, staying within this zone like that. That is a possibility. Going back to the daily, our side, everything else looks pretty good. But yeah, I think this is pretty good overall. I don't really like the rejection here, but we need to recover above the 193 zone to get this to continue. It looks like we're getting a little bit of a drop down here, and so that doesn't really mean anything to me. It happens, especially after we've went up pretty much the entirety of the day. You tend to get kind of a wick towards the end of every day, anyway. So anyway, that's Solana. I think I'm kind of a bit of a time delay, so I think I'm gonna pause for Dogecoin for now. Maybe cover that on X or in Discord. But anyway, big summary with this Bitcoin doing pretty good, looking pretty strong, but the biggest factor of this is that we need to watch just for the rest of the week. We have a big pump, yes, but this is the beginning of the week, not the end of the week, so we need to be cautious. The weekly close that we did have was better than I expected, so we should continue to rally as long as we hold the 65,000 level, roughly 65,400. As long as we hold that, I think that we're pretty good for the near future. Ethereum has that deviation that I was concerned about. I think that I feel confident continuing to be concerned about this. That it needs to get this weekly reclaim to kind of hold that structure, and then Solana is looking pretty strong overall, but still within this range between the 174, really 175 or whatever, to 200 range. So anyway, just got to be a little more patient with Solana, but patiently optimistic. Anyway, that's the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think. Links will be in the description for everything that I discussed. Hope you have a good rest of the day, and we'll see you next time.